the trend is trying to push people to believe that the world economic is based on urbanization, when it really isn't. The wealth actually comes from the rural areas where the mines are, where the farms are, where everything is. The water, the land mass of water is also in the rural areas, it's not in the urban areas.
What do you promote the most in getting people to, when people are looking for investment? What's the most appropriate thing for them to invest in when you're thinking about putting them to invest in Africa?
Land, land, land and water. But obviously, what's happened now is our governments own the water, and anything that's underneath your land. You can buy a piece of land, but then they say that anything that's underneath your land, if it's minerals or whatever it is, water, anything that's underneath your land is owned by the government, because they've realized that that's where the wealth is. You can own the surface and build your house, but if we find that there's something worthwhile for government to use to gain wealth off of it, they have the right to come and dig on your land to get those resources.
That's the same thing here in the United States. That's the same thing here in the United States. Mineral rights. Yeah,
it wasn't like that for us before. They woke up, and it was actually introduced by the West.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
By the West. It actually came from you guys. Before, you can dig a borehole and you can not worry about paying the water bill. Now they charge you.
Is that
having a borehole?
Is that in particular countries, or is that the whole continent?
It's spreading. It's spreading.
I know that's what happened in the Sahel.
It spread like a cancer. So quickly. So quickly. Yeah. Before you could just...
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why governments always say, we want to keep our reserves. When they say that, that means that they want to keep their reserves of gold, and they don't want to mine in certain areas, and they want to keep it like that, because they'll probably need it later on down the line. Some governments that may come into power may be greedy and go ahead and mine in those areas, or access the water in those areas, and end up polluting it, and then it affects the whole environment of where the people live. So it ends up being another political war. Yeah.
So how do we get into buying some of the gold and some of the mines and some of the valuable...
What you do is you go into joint ventures. Yeah, you go into joint ventures with locals. Joint ventures is the best way to go. When it comes to things like that, it's joint ventures.
Okay.
Right now, yeah, they're not allowing, I know Zambia and Malawi, you're not allowed to sell your mines anymore. You have to go into a joint venture.
So this is
make sure
new.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And quite a lot of African countries are taking ownership of their own wealth, of their minerals, as well as bodies of water. They're no longer renewing certain investments that are owned by foreigners, and if they are renewing it, they're changing the conditions.
Now, one of the things that's in the U.S.
Unless it's a leader who is compromising, then it makes it a little bit more difficult for the people to have ownership.
One of the things that's taking place here in the U.S., there's a big debate over land bought by the Chinese government or by the Chinese. And most countries allow other countries, other people to come in and purchase land from foreign countries. So
Yes.
I don't know if China allows people to come in by land. I'm sure
Oh,
people can buy a house, but maybe not a plots of land. I don't know.
no. They don't have enough land. That's why they're paying Chinese people to move to Africa and other countries. They're
I,
paying them to leave. Yes,
I
they're
read a
paying them.
report. I read a report that said the Chinese were planning to move 300 million people to the continent of Africa. I think it was by 2050 or 30 or 50. And this
Yes.
is one of the reasons they were positioning themselves all over the continent in various places because
You
they
see,
were encouraging
Chinese
some people to live there, marry the.
Chinese migration, the history of Chinese migration is very, very interesting. First, they were overpopulated. Then they tried to enforce a one-child policy. Then it affected their population. Then they had too many males and too few women. And then something went on wrong. And then the COVID hit. Um, but during that process, they started looking at resolving that issue by creating a system where they would actually pay Chinese people to migrate to African countries and establish themselves there and establish a presence of China there. So it's basically more of a colonization, but it's a colonization of integrating themselves within the communities. It's not it's not like a colonization like what was done during the 17th and 1800s. It's a different type of colonization where they're integrating themselves and becoming part of the people.
You know what? I
It's a
think
slicker way. It's a smarter, slicker way of coming in. If you're talking about 350 million, that's a game
Yes.
changer.
my family, we said that my mother was Indian, but my dad's brother said no, her family was white. But she resembles exactly what we call Native Americans today. So this is the same playbook that every other group has used. So how will that pan out ultimately?
Right. Don't forget that they brought the diseases as well.
Oh
The
yeah,
the yeah, that
exactly.
was enough. They
They,
wiped a lot of stuff.
that's
Yeah.
still a form of warfare today.
Biological warfare. Absolutely. Yeah.
But you know,
How many
they,
how many labs were found in mysterious places in Ukraine?
Wow.
yeah.
But how can Africa guard itself from being taken over? That's one of the things that I've heard some speakers say, that Africa is going to be taken over by and recolonized.
Well, the strength has to be within the African people banding together. As long as we have a strong band, it will make it difficult for anybody else from the outside to come in. Um, if you're going to be coming in, then you have to be integrated as you're going to have to be adopted into the system as one of them. And but you cannot come in as and still remain a foreigner and choose to remain a foreigner. Um, so the systems, what they're doing now is that they're creating systems that will only work for the African continent. They're not integrating their system with Europe or America anymore. They're not. And that's why there's a huge trade war against BRICS. So BRICS is just an example. But right now, what's happening is that the southern region, let me give the southern region as an example, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi, and South Africa. We are very tight. We know each other. We are like the same people. Our food, our language, our slang, our habits, our men, our women, our nonverbal communication skills, our expressions, were very, very similar. Even if you're a white Southern African, we can tell that you are a true Southern African by those habits that you may have. And it's even including the non-spoken relationship that we may have with each other. If somebody foreign would come in, let's say, for example, it's an African American who comes in from the US and tries to integrate themselves as a Southern African, we can spot you from a mile away. We can spot you from a mile away. Your walk, your talk, your mannerisms will be different. And we will instantly know that you're not one of ours. Instantly. So it's all about the culture. It's all about the culture. So as long as you understand your culture, you will hold on to your culture dearly. With tooth and nail, you'll hold on to it. And you will support your neighbor because you understand each other. It's an unspoken understanding, if there's such a thing, unspoken understanding. I don't know if there's such a phrase like that, but it's a common understanding. In the same way that in the US, you have a common understanding that you are a purebred American and you're proud to be an American. You all have a certain air about yourselves that clearly defines that you are an American product. And we have that as well. So there's a certain pride for who you are. And everybody wants to hold on to their culture and their tradition because it's an identity. You don't want somebody to erase your identity, then you become lost.
How do you navigate that as Pitkalut in terms of looking at all of these things that we've talked about, which is jumping all over the board, and
right.
Bringing that together with trade through Pitkalut? How do we look at this and package it?
Yeah. Exactly. So what we do is, number one, the first step we ask you.
Also,
yes, the first one.
Can you state Pitkalut and kind of go, describe Pitkalut, and then at the end give connections on how they can contact you?
Okay, Pitkalut Consultants Limited. We have an investment portfolio, and we've also got a soft skills training portfolio, as well as a communications portfolio. All these three portfolios are interlinked. You cannot separate one from the other. They're very much related. When an investor approaches us, we ask them various questions. What exactly are you looking for? What do you want to invest in? What products do you want from Africa? Once we have that understanding, we do a mapping and we identify which region of Africa has got that strength. Let's say if it's the financial market, we can look at Mauritius. That's a financial market. Or we can look at West Africa. They've got diverse versions of different types of financials up there, and they're way ahead of certain regions of the African continent. Then we ask them, what tools are you looking for? What kind of services do you want to get into? And then we begin to narrow it down. Once we narrow it down, and then we give them profiles of a particular country. Let's say it's Abuja in Nigeria, the city of Abuja. And we say that this is the place where we would recommend that you go there. So they'll get excited. Then we say, but you need to understand the working culture. If you don't understand the working culture, you lose a lot of money and you come back home empty-handed. Then we take them through the training of understanding the culture before they even engage with the market people in that area. And that training also involves communication. How are you going to communicate the message of your business? You've got to understand the culture. Are you going to produce adverts on TV? Are you going to use social media? Are you going to use print? What mode of communication are you going to use? So we interlink everything to make sure that we help you deliver a fantastic package within that market, and you work with specific individuals in that market that can help you grow your brand. That's what we do. Sorry?
How can they contact you?
You can contact us either via email. You can search for Hit Galut Consultants Limited through social media. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can send us a message on any of those. We do have a website as well. We do have a general info@hitgalutconsultants.com email address as well. So there are various ways that you can reach out to us. You just Google us, and then we'll pop up. Hit Galut, when I first registered the company, I was a sole trader. So you will see how my company has actually grown even on the website. When I was a sole trader, I couldn't afford a website. So I went to Google and created a profile for Hit Galut. Back then it was free. So you will actually see a version of Hit Galut on Google back in the day. And then we also do have very brief, short tools on YouTube, which I started creating because we found out that quite a few aspiring business people in Zambia and Malawi and a few other African countries that have actually used our services wanted to continue using us through our soft skills, but that was during COVID. So we do have little business nuggets to help you just get you by and encourage you. They're motivational nuggets, which we ran within those 2 years during the time of COVID. So you will find us also on YouTube as well.
Excellent.
So we do have quite a presence online.
That's great. And Elizabeth.
So right now our website, we're going to be updating it very soon. So maybe off and online every once in a while, but not for too long, because we want to make sure that people get the right connections of the different countries where we have a presence. Currently we are in Malawi, Abuja, obviously in Lusaka. We're trying to get something in Congo, but not quite right now because of what's happening. But the office might still operate from the Lusaka office. We've got the Hit Galut Medical Solutions. That's a mobile office because Medical Solutions has to do with working with medical personnel across the African continent, where doctors can share skills virtually. and then also looking at supplying of equipment and updating equipment. So that's also the trainings will also be virtual. So there is no specific physical office for the Hitgalut Medical Solutions, but if any information might be needed, it will be best to reach out to here in Lusaka, Zambia, where I'm at, to get that information.
That sounds great. I really appreciate you coming on this morning, Elizabeth with Hitgalut, and you and Rodney. I always look forward to Monday mornings so we can get together and talk about trade in Africa and the world, what's happening around the world, and how all of these pictures and how this puzzle is actually supposed to come together. So this is Franklin Marshall with African Trade Network, and I am so happy that we were able to spend time together today with Elizabeth and Rodney, and we look forward to next Monday to share about Africa and the things that we can do to invest and to do trade with the African continent. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Marshall. Bye.
Bye-bye.